Hello and welcome to the Happy Musicians Podcast, where it's not about getting the gig, it's about enjoying it. My name is Tanner Guess, and I'm so grateful to have you with me today. Before I get into it, just want to say thank you to everyone who is supporting the podcast. Those of you buying merch online, sharing posts on social media, and especially everyone leaving rating and reviews on Apple Podcasts. It really is the easiest and most effective way to help this message grow and reach more people, and there's a chance I'll feature your review on the next episode, like this one from Cherry Glazer. It's Glazer with 2 R's. Says, this podcast made me a happier musician. Thank you for your service. Thank you, Cherry Glazer, for you and your support. Keep on living your best life. And let's get into it. Today I'm talking with Alex Joseph Hall. And AJ is one of the most tasteful, soulful drummers I know. He's also a fantastic bassist and producer. He's been going all in on social media on these custom drum breaks and one-shots he produces. We're listening to one right now, actually. And I just so appreciate his presence online. For whatever reason, it's standard practice to post videos of yourself playing where you're really intense and then you are self-deprecating in your caption about how it's not as good as it should be or that you need to practice more. And Alex just doesn't do that. He celebrates his own playing and feels good about it and isn't afraid to show that he's happy with what he sounds like. And I just love that. And I'm happy to get to share some of that with you today. Also in our conversation, we do a breakdown of Pixar's Soul, which, if you haven't seen yet, is incredible, and be warned that there are plenty of spoilers in this conversation. But it was such an amazing depiction of Black American music and just what it's like to be a musician. And there are intricacies of this film that AJ really feels like have gone over some people's heads, so I've been waiting to do this for a few weeks, and it was nice to find someone who was passionate about getting into the nitty-gritty on Soul. We also talk about gratitude. We talk about not waiting for success to be happy. And we talk about figuring out who you are and getting loud about it. And also just a warning that there is plenty of strong language in this interview. Thank you so much for your time and your attention, and please help me welcome Alex Joseph Hall.
I am gigging a little bit, but the happiness that I've achieved is what's the word? Like they backpack off of each other, you know? Like the happier you get and the louder you get about being happy, all of a sudden, the more support you're seeing for whatever business it is that you have, whatever music it is you're making. The happier that you are about it, the more that people want to enjoy it also, you know? Like, never. So, and then the more support you get and the more that people want to enjoy it with you, the happier you get. The happier you get, the more support you get, the more support you, and it just keeps, you know what I mean? You just keep stacking those two things on top of each other. And it's, you know, it's that and being grateful, you know? Like when the shutdown happened, I was absolutely in the darkest place of my life. I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir of any musician watching this right now. You know, I was absolutely in the darkest place of my life. And then I just slowly started to become grateful. You know, when you're at rock bottom, there's nothing else you can do but look at the small things in your life and go, you know what, that's pretty dope, you know? And then that just starts building and building and building. So you almost, I hope that any musician watching this, if you've been, you know, completely stripped down because of COVID shutdowns, you're not gigging anymore, you're not touring anymore, you don't necessarily have all the recording stuff, you just lost, take a walk, man. Just eat something that you enjoy, like read a book, just find joy in little things. And then all of a sudden you might feel like playing the instrument again. You might feel like posting online about, you know, collaborating with somebody on some music, you know, like the happiness comes from here. It doesn't come from you grabbing something out there and going, oh, look, I'm happy now. You know, that's not how it works. It's never how it's going to work. You know,
do you have a formal gratitude practice that's like, this is what I do kind of every day as part of your routine, or is it just
no, honestly, it's just looking at my house every morning. It's looking at the house. It's looking at the neighborhood that I live in. I'm a 6-minute ride from the beach. A
Yes.
6-minute car ride from a beach that has a parking lot that only holds about 30 cars. So I'm a 6-minute ride from a beach that is incapable of getting crowded, you know? Like, and I'm a 3-minute walk from a canal. Like, there's ocean canals that run through my neighborhood. So I'm a 3-minute walk from that, where I take my daughter sometimes during the day, you know?
Awesome.
Just little things like that. By the time I get in here and I'm making music, I'm happy as shit. Like, it's just, you know, like, and like I said, it compounds. The happier you get, the more support you receive. The more support you receive, the happier you get. It's a revolving door, you know?
Yeah, it's funny. I've been thinking about gratitude, and I tend to think in a pretty like scientific method approach of looking at things, almost
That's
like
cool.
breaking it down into like equations. And
Yeah,
I look at certain problems like trying to use social media to grow your platform. It's really
sure,
easy. Like, I care about this message, and
sure.
to have the impact that I wanted to have, like, you do need to have a like a large amount of followers, you know? So
Sure.
it's easy to be more focused on all the people who aren't listening yet.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, how do you rectify that situation?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's gratitude, right? If you plug that in, it's like,
It's
if you're
right,
grateful for
right,
who's already
right.
there.
And I'm not, and it's a weird thing talking about gratitude and happiness, because you have a lot of opportunists who aren't grateful and aren't happy yet, but they just go, oh, I just need to smile more and I'll get more, like, that's not how it works. Like, and it's weird talking about it this formally, because it seems like it was of some like formula that I deployed or something, it seemed like it seems like it's this, like I wrote it all on a whiteboard,
Like a 3-step process.
Yeah, exactly. And it's totally not that. Like, it happened completely naturally. Like, I got grateful and started to appreciate little things in my life when there was nothing going on,
Mm-hmm.
So there's no way 6 months ago that I could have been thinking, like, maybe if I just get happier, I'll be doing better in my career. Like, you physically can't think about that when you're at rock bottom from COVID shutdowns and no gigs and no nothing going on. It's physically impossible to think that far ahead. And, so it's not a formula. It's about honesty, it's about self-awareness, like being aware of, like, one of my favorite cats who speaks on this often is Gary Vee. And, Gary Vee gets lumped in with the Tony Robbins and the motivational speaker type guys,
Mm-hmm.
who get famous for preaching motivation and then retroactively claim success because they got famous talking about being successful. Gary Vee's not one of those guys. Like, he's actually speaking on what got him to a successful place before he was speaking on it,
Mm-hmm.
So I say that to say, one of my favorite points from him is figure out who you are and get loud, and what he means by get loud is, like, figure out who you are and start saying it a million different ways, like, say it on your social media profiles, say it in person when you interact with people, say it when you're blessed enough to be able to play music with other people or make music with other people, even if it's digitally,
Mm-hmm.
like, figure out who you are and get loud about it,
Like, okay, for example, like, like, I know you've been getting real loud on social media lately. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Kind of stuff out, but, like, how do you define who you are? What does that mean to you?
Sure.
For example.
Yeah, me personally, I'm a musician first. I'm also a hip hop head, and I also grew up listening to a lot of Black music, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that informs the way that I play my instruments. But go back to the beginning, growing up listening to a lot of Black music, I was listening to whatever I could back then with, like, scientific ears. I didn't know it at the time, but it was scientific ears. Like, I used to visualize I used to visualize what a snare drum on a record looked like when I was listening to it, you know? And as I learned about how the drums work in my really young years, that vision of what that snare drum sounds like on that one record gets clearer and clearer and clearer. You know, you can picture, okay, Dak has hoops. Okay, the bottom head was tuned up way, way, way high and the snares were really loose. Like you start to quantify what you're already hearing in music, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, man, I feel like I'm even being too narrow with it with talking about music, you know? Because like I said at the beginning of this podcast, like who I am gets filtered through the music. It's not the other way around, you know? That's why I said the phrase art imitates life needs to switch, you know? Life imitates art because life's first, you know? So, yeah, I mean, who I am as a person, I care about, you know, I care about making drums knock, like aggressively knocking, you know? I care about hip hop production. I care about the cross pollination of professional musicians in hip hop culture. Like I'm saying this and I want to have this clip like 10 years down the line when I've actually made that happen, you know, or at least made that grow. Like I want that dialogue to be there, you know? I feel like the key to a lot of musicians being stuck in their own head is just to listen to something that wasn't made with instruments, you know? And that, what better example of that is other than hip hop, you know? So yeah, I mean, who I am as a person is grateful. I'm in the happiest place I've ever been in my life by far, right?
Yeah.
And that informs the music, you know?
I like that. I love your version of listening. I think it's really easy to listen to music without any context. Like it's just sound.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you
yeah.
don't give it a source, like a
Sure.
person. Like, and,
Yeah.
and sometimes it can turn into like, oh, well, you're a gearhead or you're a history buff when you know all the personnel and their backgrounds and you know what they're playing on. But it actually like just makes it adds meaning to like what you're listening to.
It's quantifying information. It can definitely go the other way, but that's only when you don't attach emotional content to it. You know, that's only when you don't attach meaning to it. You're just categorizing stuff. You're just putting shit in file cabinets, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, there's absolute, like being a technician of knowing what you're listening to the best of your ability and that ability always growing. I'm a big believer in that, you know? I'm a big believer in that. And it's amazing when you get out here and talk to people, you know, how little people even know about their own instrument sometimes. You know?
I did not know a lot about the drums.
Me neither. I'm just intuitive, you know? Like I don't really know about bearing edges. I know what a bearing edge is. I don't know the different measurements of bearing edges and when you need to get yours read. I don't know about this shit. You know what I mean? But I'm intuitive with tuning and playing and drawing sound out of the drums, you know, because I've been doing it for a long time and I've wanted to do it for years before I had a drum set, you know? That's also the leg up that I have is that I didn't start playing drums when I was 4 or 5. I started playing drums when I was like 16, 17, you know? So I had already been listening to a shitload of music by then. I already had a love for music itself and the way that the drums sounded and could sound, but way before I got a drum set. So the intent was already there when I got the instrument. Like probably a decade worth of like intent was already in me before I got the instrument, you know?
That's awesome.
So it happened a lot differently for me and I'm glad that it did, you know?
Yeah. That's super interesting.
Yeah, man.
That's cool though. Man, so I like my heart dropped when I saw it, but I missed for whatever reason on the recording everything about soul. So I'd love to hit it again so that we have it on record because I thought it was impactful. Sorry about that, but
it's all good.
Coming back to it. So Pixar's Soul.
Yeah.
I think we both agree was incredible.
Yeah, man.
And what particularly just off the bat, like really struck you about it? And why do you think it's an important movie, not just like for everyone, but for musicians in particular?
Sure. So I feel like it was a movie that spoke to musicians, but probably resonated with non-musicians more than it did musicians. And I say that because the point of the movie is the point of the movie is for Joe, the main character. At the end, he realized that happiness comes first before music or musical ability or musical achievements, right? He realized that the whole time he was chasing that goal of being a jazz musician on the road, like gigging as we all know it, right? And not teaching as we all know it. He realized that he had been powering through his whole life just chasing that thing and not investing any sort of not investing any importance in just his life and what was happening. There's that part at the end of the movie after he gets the gig, right? They go outside and he's officially in the quartet. I forget what are the band leaders'
Dorothea Williams, right?
Yeah, Dorothea Williams, right? So there's a part near the end of the movie where he gets the gig, like he's there, finish line, goalpost, right? He gets to his achievement that he built up in his head, and he's like, "All right, so what are we doing? What's next?" And Dorothea says, "All right, we're gonna do it again tomorrow." And he gets this look on his face, and he kind of goes, And that to me is the part that a lot of musicians missed, and the rest of the movie from that point is what a lot of musicians sort of went over their heads, because what Joe realized is that he wasn't happy before he got that gig. He wasn't happy and enjoying his life before he got the Dorothea Williams gig, right? And so that goal that he had reached didn't really hit him as positively as he thought it was going to, So that's why I feel like a lot of musicians really missed the point of that movie. Because I know plenty of musicians that if they got that dream gig they always wanted, that they had been powering through their whole life and stomping on whatever heads they could to try and get to it, I know that they still wouldn't be happy. I know musicians on gigs that are their dream gigs who still aren't happy, And that's like happiness comes first, and then you play music and are a practicing musician,
Yeah, straight. Like that's the thing.
I feel like a lot of musicians think those two things come in reverse order,
right? Straight up. Well, I started this podcast because I always say it's not about getting the gig; it's about enjoying it. Most podcasts that I was trying to listen to were like, "Here's how you get the gig," and I was like, I just got a gig last night, and I felt like Joe did at the end of it, and doubling down on like the process of getting it. But okay, so like that was my first thing, was like, okay, well, it's about the process of getting the gigs.
Yeah,
and that was only part of it, but Soul really like brought it home, where it's like, no, it's about your whole life. Like if you want to have a life as a musician and you want to be happy doing it, you need to be happy with your life, not just with the music. You gotta
enjoy everything else first, because the music high is very fleeting, the playing live on the bandstand in front of people, that's very fleeting, that's maybe 3 hours a night, maybe, if you're lucky, it's 3 hours a night for a week straight or 2 weeks straight or even a month straight. And then what? You still got to go back to that hotel room and live with yourself. You still got to go back to your apartment or your house and live with yourself, or God forbid your spouse or your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your partner has to live with you and you're still not happy, God forbid. You know what I mean? Like that's
and the whole
toxic,
lost souls thing, where it's like some of them, it's like they never found their spark, right? But the other thing was like they were only focused on the thing that they thought was their purpose.
Right. Or they just got caught up so much in a goal, right? The one that they specifically showed was the stockbroker, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a big monster, and he just kept going, make a trade. And then you glimpse into his life and you realize that he's just at the computer, kind of crouched down, making trades. He's a stockbroker, right? What I feel like the example should have been, or maybe not, maybe it shouldn't have been this because it would have gone over like regular people's heads, but it would have resonated heavy with musicians. What I feel like another example should have been is they should have shown another lost soul, and the monster that was the lost soul should have been repeating like, like 2 5s, 2 5s, 2 5s, 2 5s, 2 5s, like it's, or whatever thing that we as musicians reach for, like if you could put it into one word, like impress, 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 anything like that. I know a lot of musicians that are that are in that place, that are 100% in that place. They're not happy. They're just chasing being able to play better and better and better and better and better, or getting a certain gig as if that's going to be the defining moment, finish line, where they can finally sigh and go, all right, I'm happy. I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
Here, like that doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. I've had times in my life where musically I thought that existed. And then you get there and you realize that it's bullshit. It's not like happiness starts here and then it gets filtered through the music. It doesn't work the other way around.
Yeah, for sure. Well,
and that's life in general, like achievements, goals, possessions, whether they're mental or emotional, or physical. Like none of it is going to make you happy if you're not happy first. If you're miserable and you're making $30,000 a year, you're going to be fucking miserable when you make $10 million a year. It doesn't work like that. So it's the same thing. If you're miserable playing at the little dive bar in your town, 2 nights a week and teaching, you're going to be miserable if you end up playing with Lady Gaga, like it doesn't work like that, Bro, so that was the point of that movie that I feel like a lot of musicians really, really missed, because it was so well represented musically that I feel like that's what everybody focused on. It's like, wow, it really spoke to what we do, which it did.
Yeah, it did.
Like I was
crying.
Like the point of the movie got lost,
But yeah, and I also think you have to be careful not to look at it like, oh, well, music isn't that special, we're overdoing it. No,
not at all.
Those moments playing music are so special, but also that thing that you find, that space that makes life worth living. Music should be this thing that reminds you how to do that, and then you can do that all the time.
That's what it is.
Look at it, it's limiting to look at it as like, I can only do this on the bandstand. You should look at the opposite of like, what if I can take this feeling and now that I'm familiar with it, find it everywhere else.
Yep. And it's a weird thing because most musicians, honestly, who find themselves in competitive areas, guys who are like us, who are either in their early 20s or mid 30s or sometimes in their 40s, like you get into this really competitive space, whether it's the city you're in, or it's the industry you're in, or it's the genre that you're mainly focused in, like you find yourselves in these competitive spaces and there's a stigma attached with being happy, like there's, for a long time, I noticed that just being really happy and appreciative of music, like in the musician community, very largely, you're an idiot if you're like enjoying yourself a lot, especially if you're enjoying yourself at someone else's gig. That's the worst. You ever see the off in the rafters behind the curtains or on the side of the stage, there's 15 drummers standing here like this.
Yeah, I've
and they're watching.
Often. I've been that person at your gig.
I mean, but that's the thing, though. I'm not some miraculous performer. I'm not saying everybody should be losing their mind all the time when they're watching music. I'm just saying genuinely enjoying music, and thus enjoying life and being happy. Like there's a stigma attached with that. Like there's this unwritten policy in the musician world that we're supposed to have hard shells and not be smiling and joyous and laughing and just enjoying life, And when we are, it's usually because we're around the 3 or 4 people that we feel comfortable showing our happiness to. I know people that are absolute dial tones when you meet them, as after the gig, or musicians, but all of a sudden they're around the other fellow drummer that they feel more comfortable being around, and they're cutting up laughing, going crazy, and then they go to say goodbye to you and they're like, oh yeah, peace, man, yeah, bye. You know what I mean? It's like, so there's this weird thing where just being a happy person is stigmatized.
Yeah, like you have to apologize for loving what just life.
Yeah, or not even apologize. It's just like that. There's a thing where if like you enjoy too much, then you get read as like, oh, you probably don't know what you're doing. You know?
Yeah. Okay, I get that. Like, oh, you just don't get it.
Yeah, exactly. Like you don't get it. You're enjoying yourself. Like somebody who's enjoying themselves on the side of the stage at the gig, and all the other musicians look at them like, what are you? Chill. You know, but it's like, no, this is what we do for a living, and I'm watching somebody do it very well. Why wouldn't I be excited? You know, like
for sure.
Yeah, it's the happiness in the music community is way more important than I think people let on, and it's not being talked about enough. That's why I'm glad podcast. You know.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad to know that I'm not crazy for like have like seeing this and realizing like, oh no, this is a thing.
It's an issue. Yeah. And it came about. It's serendipitous that it came about at this time where it's been largely ripped away from a lot of us. You know.
Yeah, honestly, for sure. I in somewhat in a counter to you do strive to just be yourself in any situation, and but there's also something special about finding your people and your band and like those people that you don't have to prove yourself around. And I know you were going in on the Coltrane Quartet the other day.
Yeah, man, because those four genuinely loved each other, like genuinely. You don't get to play like that if you don't. You know what I mean? You don't play impressions for quite literally 45 minutes if you're not absolutely happy as shit that you're on the bandstand with those people. That doesn't work like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that, they accessed something. They were one of the first bands to really access something that all of us should be shooting for. And I'm not saying stretch out on a tune for 45 minutes. I'm saying that all of them access just being right there and being satisfied with whatever, but still reaching for something musical to execute. You know, a lot of people get through on the other end of just like, let's just enjoy ourselves, man. And then, nobody's really playing anything.
Right. Right.
Like you have to marry the two. You have to marry reaching for your highest musical self with being extremely satisfied with every single moment that happens. You know,
and that seems like the big variable for me is that like if I'm playing with someone who's like judging me, and I don't mean like I'm sitting in with some older musicians and then like they're gonna like
that's a given.
I mean like if I'm on if I'm on the gig and I have this at a jam session and you get that sense that people are just judging what you're playing. That's the worst feeling. And
and low key, I've been in those situations before. Low key, the people that do that are sabotaging the music more than you could.
Exactly. You know? Yeah.
Like I've been in those situations so many times. Often where I was overqualified for how I was being judged. You know. But even if I was lacking something in those moments, like when you get into that mentality of you're like really, really casting out that energy towards somebody of like, what the fuck are you doing here? You know, you're making the tune or the gig or the tour go worse than that person that you're mad at could even imagine, you know?
Yeah.
Like you're sabotaging this shit 10 times more than somebody who you feel doesn't deserve to be there. You know what I mean? Like that. Because most likely the person who doesn't deserve to be there is really happy about being there. You know?
Straight up. But there's this like there's the most special thing when you're playing with someone and they're like genuinely celebrating what you're playing as it's happening.
Sure.
You know, listening and celebrating it and so excited about it. And I feel like that's when I play my best. And everyone in that band, everyone in that band celebrated everyone else and loved everything that they were playing. And I feel like my biggest goal is to like find those people.
Find those people. Yeah.
And
We
have
can
it.
get into it. That's
Yeah.
why I've been with the John Cleary gig for so long, you know,
Mhm.
because we achieved that instantly from downbeat. You know, we have our moments where, you know, somebody messes up or a tune doesn't go right. We're like, oh shit, you know, but usually from the downbeat, it's like, all right, let's do this. I'm happy as shit to be here right now. Let's go, you know. And that's whether we're the trio or we're playing with Big D or we're playing with Nigel or we're playing with Big D and Nigel. It's immediate. Like, this is the shit from the downbeat. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's a weird thing it's a great thing for the audience to see, but somehow it's a weird thing for other musicians to see. You know, this is that thing that I go back to where, like, being happy and enjoying yourself, there's this thing attached to it that, like, you don't know what you're doing fully, you know?
Yeah. And I think there's maybe a certain amount of like when I think it can be hard for a musician to see that.
Yeah.
Because you maybe not I'm totally just breaking this down. I might be wrong, but if I were to try, it would be like, maybe you don't realize that that's what you wanted. Is like, you just want to feel like that. So in that moment, you are frustrated because you're like, well, if I was just on that gig, then I would be happy. If I was, or like, why am I not on that gig? And it's like, don't make it about you having to be on this gig, but have this be a model of what you want to find. You know?
What you want to find. Yeah. And I know musicians that don't enjoy the gigs that they're on or the bands that they're in because they feel like they're bigger than that gig or bigger than that band, and they feel like they should be somewhere else. You know?
Mm-hmm.
I know musicians that just don't enjoy the situations that they're in musically because they feel like they're better than it. But here's the kicker. Like, you already lost. Like, you're on the gig. It doesn't matter if you feel like you're bigger than that gig. You're playing the fucking gig right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So it's like, you can either sit there and dwell on it, or you can practice some humility and gratitude and enjoy the hour and a half that you have to play the gig that you think you're bigger than, you know? There's a weird wave out here in music, and I hope that the COVID shutdown has been a little bit of a reset, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I hope that the musician community learns to stop posturing and just learns to have happiness and musical goals in parallel rather than like this, you know? Like, I hope we can learn to be happy at the same time as we're reaching for something musically that we do, not reach for something that we musically want to do and think that happiness is at the end of it.
Yeah, I hear you.
Like,
for sure, man.
They happen simultaneously. They don't happen one after the other, or they should, you know?
Yeah. Well, and like another thing for me is that, like, I kind of, this sounds dark, but I really think it's a positive thing. Like, there are a lot of people who are playing gigs who are really unhappy on those gigs, but they're taking those gigs because they feel like they have to. It's like, I need the money, and so I have to be doing this. Well, and I honestly think, like, there are a lot of people who would be happier if they just, like, stopped playing the gigs and, like, maybe didn't do music full time as a thing, but they might be more happy as a person and enjoy music more if they
there's a lot of people
didn't try to do that, you know?
feel that way. There's a lot of people who that fits, and I'll tell you why. Because a lot of people approach music like they would any other hustle, you know? A lot of people approach playing music as if they're, you know, one of the salesmen at a car dealership, and they're trying to get the most sales for the month, you know? Like, they just approach it like any other hustle, and you can tell because they're not genuine about it. You can tell what they're focused. It's very easy to read people. People think that it's not. People think that they're hiding with this whole, you know, just posturing, trying to get the gig thing. People think that they're hiding. It's very easy to read, you know. That's why most people don't get those gigs. It's because band leaders know what they're doing. They know when somebody's too thirsty, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, you can either keep playing that game and keep lying to yourself that a certain gig is going to make you happy, or you can practice some humility and practice some gratitude and figure out, do I want the gig because it's what I want to play and I'm already satisfied? Or am I telling myself that that gig is going to help me reach happiness and satisfaction? Because the answer to that question is no. It's always no.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, man. There's musicians in general need to wise up, man, especially now that it's all been ripped away from us. You know, I got happy as shit when I stopped caring about what local scenes and local like gatekeepers thought of me. You know, I got real happy when I let go of that. You know, because you've already lost that game if somebody has pegged you as not worthy. You know, you're not gonna. There's the Bonnie Raitt song that I can't make you love me if you don't. It's not gonna happen. You know, it's just it's not gonna happen in the first place. Somebody brands you, somebody that you want to play with brands you as not being worthy. You're not going to be that in their eyes because they're ignorant enough and stupid enough to brand you as that in the first place. You know, so they're definitely too stupid to change their mind. You know.
Yeah, I guess. And there's more gigs. Like, they're not the end all be all.
Dude, and I know this goes back to it. I know people playing stadium gigs that are fucking miserable. You know, miserable.
Yeah, it's like if you had,
and they're low key just as stuck. They feel just as stuck as somebody who's playing on the strip 5 nights a week and feels like there's no way out. You know, do you think the drummer from insert stadium gig here is really ready for the humility of leaving a gig that they're miserable on and starting back at like, all right, maybe I need to play some club dates, you know? Like, if you're not happy, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
You know?
For sure, man.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's all fantastic. I really appreciate you sharing all of it.
No problem, man. No problem.
And I'm glad I caught my recording fumble earlier rather than later.
It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. I mean, if there's anything else that like you just really feel like sharing about mental health and wellness, you can go for it. But
so go ahead. Sorry.
Well, yeah. And if not, then before we're done, definitely want to give you a chance to just let people know about what you're doing and where to find you and what you offer.
All right. So, I mean, my thoughts on happiness, especially as a musician, and even more relevant in 2021, but I hope this carries on to when we can all get back out there and do our thing. Man, you have to be happy, man. You have to look at what you have in your life, and no matter how minute you think it is, you have to realize that somebody else, a lot of other people don't have it, you know? A roof over my head. I have my own studio in my house, man. You know, I'm a 6-minute ride from the beach. I take my daughter on walks and we go fishing in a canal up the street. Like, that's, if I break my legs tomorrow and can't play drums again until I'm 50, who cares? You know? Yeah. I'll still reach for it. I'm still a drummer, bass player, producer at heart. But man, you gotta be happy, man. And diving even more specifically into that, I'm not saying that you need to be out here, you know, lighting incense every 10 seconds and, you know, getting on Instagram live every morning and saying, good morning, love and light to everyone. We just want to pray. I'm not saying that. Live life, you know, you'll get frustrated, you'll be sarcastic. I'm still very sarcastic and, you know, purposefully ignorant sometimes. It doesn't mean that I've changed my whole demeanor. I
you haven't transcended.
Yeah, like I still am who I am. But at the end of the day, I'm just so much happier because I just don't give a fuck anymore, you know? And that's informed how well that I'm doing in my music and my career right now. Like, when you stop reaching for the thing and just start doing what you're passionate about, all of a sudden success starts to come your way. You know what I mean? And like, it's real success too. It's not a flash in the pan, you know, suddenly you get put on by somebody, because that doesn't last if you're not genuine in the first place. Yeah. You know? So like happiness, man, I'm going to paraphrase Gary Vee again, man. Figure out who you are and get loud. Like, get loud about it. You know, I know plenty of people that are hilarious clowns in person. One of the funnest people to be around ever. You know, I know so many people like that. And when it's time to promote their album, they sit in front of a camera and they go, "Hi, everyone. I'm coming out with a record, so I'd really like you to go." Like, that's not who you are. You know,
Yeah.
Tell people who you are. Get loud. You know, and it's not, I'm not saying be in everybody's face like, listen to my shit. It's not that. If you're very, very quiet and very, very stoic, be that. If you're loud in public, you cut up, you drink, you carry on, you're fun to be around. God damn it, be that. When it's time to say something to the world in this little device that we have that everybody has in their pocket, when it's time to say something, say it as you. Don't say it as what you think is going to be received well or what you think should be how somebody who operates in your field of music should be. Like, fuck all that, man. Like, be you. Figure out who you are and get loud. That's it.
That's it.
So if now it's time for promo, I guess.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to find me, man, AJ Hall 89 on Instagram. It's pretty much that on every other platform too. TikTok, Twitter, AJ Hall 89. I make drum breaks, man. If there's any producers out there that are looking for good drum sounds, looking for those classic, gritty, nasty drum sounds, I play them here in my home studio using my kit. I run them through a reel-to-reel tape machine from 1971. And if you're a hip-hop producer or music maker and you want to use some drum breaks, but you don't want to get sued by the James Brown estate, find me on Instagram.
All right, that does it for this episode of the Happy Musicians Podcast. If you want to hear more from AJ or get yourself some custom drum breaks, you can find links to those things and everything else we mentioned at thehappymusicians.com. I'm really proud of the website, actually, and I encourage you to check it out. There are a ton of resources for you available on there. There's a blog with targeted essays on the issues and topics that come up in these interviews. There's a free music recommendation service called Fresh Picks. I have all the podcast episodes broken down on there into categories so that you can easily find an episode that'll help you with whatever you're struggling with right now. And there is a merch shop with t-shirts, hoodies, practice fuel mugs, and positivity posters. It's a fantastic way to not only support the show, but get a high-quality product in your life that can serve as a daily reminder that you're trying to be happier as a musician. That's all I got for you. Thank you again so much for giving me your time and attention. I hope you got something out of it. And if you did, please consider sharing the show with someone. Send it in a text, share our posts online, or leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts to appease the algorithm overlords. And that's all I got. Thanks again. I hope you'll join me for next week. And until then, stay happy, y'all.